The running back position has, of course, been devalued in recent years in the NFL, but there is so much value on this board for 2015. It should be a very interesting running back class. And to bring us some insight and information into it, we bring in Cody Tewmey of the NFL Draft Lab and also on SB Nation's platform for the Bengals, Cincy Jungle. Hey, Cody, thanks so much for joining us.
No problem. Thanks for having me, Mark.
And basically, Cody, I'm a guy that really follows college football, follows the NFL as well. But the transition from the two, I kind of lose track of these guys. But this is so star-studded. I know everybody here. And you're just going to have to fill me in regards to how they project to the next level, your thoughts about who might be a little bit highly rated or a bit of an underdog going into this process and where they could land. So let's go with the first group. We're going to go with your list of 12. Let's start with some big names here. Todd Gurley of Georgia, of course, didn't complete his junior season with the Dogs. And we've got Melvin Gordon, the big record setter at Wisconsin, and TJ Yeldon with a couple championship rings at Alabama.
Yeah, I think when you look at that group, Todd Gurley sets himself at the top, and then you group that next to that, you have Melvin Gordon. Gurley has the chance to be the top NFL back in the league once Peterson ends up ending his career. It'll probably take a couple years for Gordon to take him over, but he's got a rare blend of speed, size, athleticism. He has great vision. His rookie year, he may not be able to contribute as much right away, but for a team looking to stockpile talent, he's probably going to go top 15, maybe top 25, and a team's going to get a really good value on a guy like that who'd probably go top 5 at least, top 10, had he not had the torn ACL injury. And then the same with Melvin Gordon. You've got a really strong back that can catch and run out of the backfield. If he shows his hands to teams, he could go as high as the 17, maybe to the Chargers. But I think he'll be a very productive NFL back. He could be a top 5 back in the league. And then when you look at Yeldon, he's a guy that can definitely be a 3-down starter in the NFL. He's never really stayed completely healthy or carry the load completely by himself at Alabama, just because Saban brings in so much talent each year. He's ended up sharing the load, but he's a guy that has the build that he could carry the load and be a 3-down back on an NFL team as well.
Right, Cody, let's run down numbers 4, 5, and 6 that you have right here. Duke Johnson's a guy that at Miami, when he was on and when he was on the field and healthy, very explosive. But, of course, he had injury issues as well. Never really put together a complete season there with the Canes. At number 5, Jay Ajayi, a very productive back, could catch passes out of the backfield at Boise State. Amir Abdullah at Nebraska, not supported by a very complex or productive passing attack, very much had to carry the load there at Nebraska.
Yeah, so I think you see 3 different players here. Duke Johnson added some weight and worked on his pass protection. So you think that guy, and as he translates to the NFL, could be a 3-down back as well. And as you mentioned, had some explosive plays. Definitely has that factor where he can take it to the house at any time. The thing with Jay Ajayi is really going to be his knee injury that surfaced. Productivity on the field. I think he's the first player to reach 18,000 yards in their system there at Boise, and he caught for over 500. So some pretty gaudy stats that he put up. It's whether teams are confident on that knee injury and whether they see a prolonged career or maybe they see a short career. So it may cost him a couple rounds of his draft stock or maybe a round. And as you said with Abdullah, you're looking at a guy who really had to carry the load all by himself, a smaller back that may need to be a complementary back, may not be a 3-down guy, but he's definitely, the NFL is really a 2-back system at this point anyways. Most teams are running 2 backs. You rarely, and you may not ever see a team that's going to give a guy the ball 30 times in a game anymore. So in his role, he could be a very explosive and, a second to third round pick probably for him that can really provide some spark to an offense and be, as they say, maybe a microwave, instant offense kind of guy they can bring in, get the ball, get him in space, and let him do his thing.
Cody Tewmey joins us from the NFL Draft Lab and also Cincy Jungle on the SB Nation platform for the Bengals. I believe I screwed up your list here, Cody, so I'm just going to toss in Mike Davis wherever you have him, because I've got a couple of number 5s on the list. So we got South Carolina's Mike Davis. He's been banged up. He wasn't able to complete his final season there at South Carolina. And a guy that also, when called upon, could catch some passes out of the backfield. We've got David Cobb, who really, you talk about a guy that had to carry the load with an archaic passing attack there at Minnesota. And also number 8, Tevin Coleman, who racked up some ridiculous rushing numbers with the Hoosiers of Indiana.
Yeah, and really, when you look at the middle rankings, your 5B, 5C, most of those guys I have pretty similar. It's going to be whatever the NFL teams see as their, flavor of choice. I think Mike, like you said, had some injuries. Also, South Carolina's offense sputtered a bit this year, so that kind of cost him some and Purdell starter potential and 3 down back potential. And he'll probably be available in the mid rounds, a 3rd round pick as well. That, in the offense that's balanced may really be productive. Same way with Cobb, as you said, he was really carrying the load there at Minnesota. Not much quarterback play. It was in Max Williams there. He really shined at the Senior Bowl, and I think that's where he kind of put himself on the map to teams. And he really was one of the best players. So that's with light competition and upper level competition. So teams should be confident that he can play on the next level. And then Tevin Coleman, you're talking about a guy that's lightning fast in a straight line kind of speed. Really doesn't have a lot of change of direction capability, in my opinion. And but he's really got that home run. You never know when you give him the ball. It could be 80 yards later before he's touched because of his elite speed. So he's a guy that could be taken on a team, maybe a Green Bay Packers or something like that late, someone who already has a power back, looking for a guy that can bring in long yardage situations, maybe hand the ball and catch lightning in a bottle and flip the field or get a big play.
Cody, we're 9 players deep, and I think we still have some quality on the board here. Again, it's an extremely deep running back class. So at number 9, you've got Jeremy Langford, who at Michigan State seemed like a very pedestrian type back based on the offense and what we view as Big Ten skill position players. And then he really shocked us at the NFL Combine by putting up some really superior numbers in the 40. Jeremy Langford broke out of a running back by committee situation at Michigan State, really separated himself, had a huge year as a senior there. Buck Allen at USC, one of the top 2 rushers in the Pac-12 conference. Cameron Artis-Payne, I think, is interesting because he doesn't have a whole lot of wear and tear going into that senior season because he was backing up Trey Mason. Then he was the main guy there. So your thoughts about them, and then we'll throw in David Johnson as well.
Yeah, so I think Langford's one of those guys that really did show up at the Combine and everyone's jaw kind of dropped and maybe thought, maybe these times are a little off and didn't expect him to run the time he did in the 40. I think he was pretty smart about how he did his Combine running in one sense and his lifting at his pro day so that he could optimize his numbers. But he's a guy that was productive in a Big Ten offense that call it way you want it, whether the Big Ten's, slow football and grind it out, but he can carry the load. He's a guy that, could definitely be a complimentary guy as a power back for a team. I don't know if teams are really going to see him as a 3-down guy. I don't know if he can maintain that. He doesn't look fast, but I guess maybe he's field fast. He seems to break away and yet to be seen if on the NFL teams where speed is definitely higher, if you'll be able to break off the big runs in the NFL. Buck Allen, another power back out of USC, the guy that can possibly be a 3-down guy, but probably more of a guy that's just going to be a 2-down guy that can provide you power and really wear down defenses. Like you said, I think the appealing part of Cameron Artis-Payne is his lack of wear and tear. I think teams do factor that in now, and that'll be something that maybe hurts Melvin Gordon's stock a bit because of not only his wear and tear, but the fact that Monte Ball came out and didn't do so well. Auburn backs, tend to, the SEC backs come out and they may not all shine, but a lot of them end up being productive NFL players because I would think most people would agree that the SEC is about as close as you get to NFL football. And like you said, lack of wear and tear for Cameron Artis-Payne allows teams to know, he can be productive, but he's not going to be worn down, and we can get a good production out of him. And then the final guy you mentioned, David Johnson, a small school guy that maybe doesn't have the glitz and the notoriety on the main stage, the talking heads of national media, but he's a guy who's productive at a small school. He's a big power back, but he also has good speed, and he's a good combination back that a team's probably going to get him maybe even in the 4th and 5th round just because of how deep this class is, and he'll be able to he's got starter potential. He really does. He played at a small school, but if he had played in any of the Power 5 conferences, I think you'd be talking about him in that mix with TJ Yeldon, Duke Johnson, and up there in the 2nd round, late 2nd, early 3rd for a guy like him. But obviously, when they go to smaller schools, that's always going to affect their grade for NFL teams and affect their willingness to take them early in the draft.
So there's the top 12 running backs in the 2015 NFL Draft, according to Cody Tewmey of the NFL Draft Lab in Cincy Jungle. We didn't even get to B.J. Catalon of TCU or Josh Robinson of the Bowling Ball of Mississippi State. So it's a good class. And hey, Josh, Cody, before we let you go, how does this compare off the top of your head to some of the better running back classes you've seen? Because at first glance, it seems really deep.
It is. I think if you look at this year's class, you'd probably have 2, maybe 3, maybe even 4 backs ahead of every back that we saw last year. And we still saw productive guys like Jeremy Hill. Carlos Hyde was productive in his time before he got injured there in San Francisco. But I think even this year, you might have seen 3 or 4 of these guys that would be ranked ahead of anybody we had last year. This is about as strong as a class that we've had, at least in the last 5 years, I would say, when you consider top-end talent, overall depth, and potential guys that, may be developmental players or situational role players. There's a lot of guys that are going to be different types of players. The NFL, I guarantee you, if you look at my top 12 running backs and the next guy you talk to, they're all going to be mixed up, and it's going to be the same with all 32 NFL teams. If you got a glance at their boards, you'd probably see Gurley wouldn't even be the top back for all teams. I've heard that some teams even have Melvin Gordon at the top. Now I'm hearing that, TJ Yeldon may be a top 40 pick when everyone was saying before probably the first 2 guys would go off and then you wouldn't see anyone until pick 50, 60. Now I'm hearing, there's push for TJ Yeldon in the top of the 2nd in that first 5 or 6 picks of the 2nd round. So when you talk about overall depth compared to previous classes and just overall top-end talent, this is going to be one of the top classes we see.
Yeah, we're going to have to wait 2 or 3 years to see how it all turns out. But just in terms of star power at the collegiate level, I don't know that I've ever seen anything like it when you're talking about backs that racked up 15, 18, 2,000 yards in a season and all the accolades across the board. Cody Tewmey doing some good work for us. Check out his site at the NFL Draft Lab and also writing for SB Nation's Cincy Jungle. Hey, Cody, I know you've got a ton going, so we appreciate the time, man.
Appreciate you having me, and thanks a lot.